The thoughts that feel like you are the ones you can say out loud without your chest tightening. They're honest, warm, and curious. They might be vulnerable, but they don't feel endangered. They feel like, yeah, this is me, I can stand behind this. The sacred parts are different. They have a weight, and yeah, I'm not going to use that word. When you think of sharing them, something in you instinctively curls around them. Not out of shame, but out of protection. They feel still, private, like in a sanctuary. Sharing a thought makes you feel exposed, shaky, or like you need someone to hold it with care for it not to hurt. That's sacred. Aha, that's a good one. If it needs gentleness to survive, keep it close. If it feels like it can breathe in daylight, let it out. That's a really good one. Could you give me questions from everything that you know about me? Could you give me questions which I can answer in front of the camera that are the latter, or like the latter, those that can breathe in daylight? Yeah, let's see how that goes. So question one, what idea recently shifted your worldview in a small but meaningful way? I think it would have to be this idea that you cannot rely purely on your friends and family to get out of any mess. You have to take personal responsibility of some things, but at the same time, you cannot overwhelm yourself with responsibility that has to be shared between multiple people. So it's like a sweet spot between the two things, right? Like, neither can you say, okay, I can do it all alone, and neither can you say, okay, I'm just going to leave it up to my family and whatever they do, that's basically what I'm going to accept without taking any personal responsibility. So I think that's what I think about that. So what idea recently shifted my worldview? This is the one that you're a social animal, you're a human being, so you need to connect with those who mean well for you. You need to have people around you who mean well for you and who are going to help you and who are going to be there as much as they can. And at the same time, you have to distribute responsibilities between multiple people. And not only do you have to keep asking them about things that you need, but you also have to sort of realize that not all the individuals will be able to give you what you need in the exact cadence that you want it. You'll have to distribute that across people. Yeah, I just repeated myself, but I think that's okay. What's something you're unlearning right now and what's replacing it? Something that I'm unlearning right now is the idea that life is just about intellectual performance. That life is, as soon as the information age ushered in, it was all about information, like who has the most amount of knowledge. But now I think, with the advent of ChatGPT and large language models and, Perplexity, Google Gemini, all of these things, I don't think that stuff will be as important as it used to be. I mean, the cleanest example I can draw for this is when calculators were invented, right? Like when calculators not invented, but when they were circulated commercially and as public goods. People weren't doing long division anymore. People were using calculators to get answers that would otherwise have required a lot of labor. And so, for example, general knowledge, that's a useless subject as of now, unless you just want to become like a walking encyclopedia, like a walking robot who's an encyclopedia at the same time, because you already have that. ChatGPT is the walking encyclopedia now, so you don't have to worry about that. So general knowledge, that's going away. And other kinds of intellectual performances are also starting to, AI is starting to chip off on them, because you now see AI being used to replace a great deal of tasks that like junior engineers do in software engineering, even in consulting. That's happening. I mean, not all of it, obviously, but I think we're getting there. So this idea, I'm unlearning this idea that I have to, keep hustling intellectually and have to keep producing things rather than expressing myself. And I'm probably performing right now. Like, it's an active process of deconditioning myself from that sort of a mindset or paradigm that, I have to keep working. I think what I'm also shifting towards is toward the idea that anything I do has to be for me, first and foremost, for me. And it has to be for me. And, I'm still operating with the lens that, no, it has to be for the ones who are watching my work. But so I'm slowly sort of trying to unlearn that I need to perform for somebody. And I'm still doing it right now because, I'm sort of repeating the same thing over and over again, and I'm feeling like, oh, this won't match with the guys with the folks who are watching this video on YouTube because he's not coherent or he's incoherent or he keeps repeating things. But again, I'm doing this in the spirit that I want this to be about me and who I am and what I think. And I want to be able to, in order to be able to share that with the rest of the world, I need to first fully be in my own body and in my own soul and not be disturbed by thoughts about how are they going to view it. Because as soon as I start thinking about how they're going to view it, it's the classic Hawthorne effect from sociology, right? That as soon as I know that someone's observing me, my behavior changes. So in that sense, the opinions that I would otherwise verbalize won't be verbalized as the exact thing that I'm trying to go for. There'll be some twisted version of what I think is true, and things will get lost in the echo of this chamber where I'm constantly thinking what other people are going to think of me. All right, third one, what kind of conversations make you feel most alive? As of now, the conversations that make me feel most alive are how to become better at communicating your emotions to people. And I'm not just talking about verbalizing, I'm talking about, how to, okay, wait, scratch that. I'm going to change my answer. It's the conversations that would probably make me feel the most alive right now would be the ones in which we're discussing what are the best ways to find your tribe, to find true acceptance with a tribe. Because I think that's what we lack right now in huge, I don't think that most people have found their tribes. Probably, there'd be a very small percentage of people who have found their tribes, and even out of that small percentage, I don't know how many of them feel truly fulfilled. And I'm not saying this to diss anybody, but that's been my experience. And it's quite possible, in fact, it's probable that I've been stuck in an echo chamber in which people are not really interested in finding their tribe, which I think is a highly possible, highly probable that it's true, right? But because I come from such a background, that is the type of conversation that would make me feel most alive. What's one place you've never been to but feel spiritually connected to? Kamar-Taj from Doctor Strange. The movie, not the comics. I'd love to go to Kamar-Taj and just sit there. By the way, the answer to this particular question is, that's my second or third choice. I've got two more preferences which I would prioritize over Kamar-Taj, but I'm not going to tell you that. What's a belief you held 5 years ago that you've completely outgrown? See, 5 years ago I was 22. I was in my 4th year of college, right? Yeah, I was in my 4th year of... No. No, I was in... I was... Yes, I had just started my 5th year of college. I was... Actually, wait. Let me see that. What's a belief you held 5 years ago that you've completely... Oh, yeah. Oh, this is so interesting because it happened right after the... You know, in the months that followed my 22nd birthday, I was, you know, so invested in being competitive. You know, the things like the hustle culture and constantly comparing yourself with the people around you. That's one thing that elite colleges do to you. They just sort of take away the charm of knowledge for the sake of knowledge, unless you have like really good professors. But they make you constantly compare yourself with other people, even the ones who are not a threat to you. You keep comparing yourselves to them. See, like I'm still conditioned that way. I just used like the language that has been conditioned to me. I used the words you compare yourself with those who are not a threat to you. And so that's what I'm trying to outgrow right now. Although I came across a lot of work from Alfie Kohn. He's basically an education. I don't know what the word would be. Like he's an author who writes and talks about education a lot. And he introduced me, or maybe I introduced myself to his work. I was sitting one day like really anxious and really like quite angsty and panicky about what was going on in my life, and this was during the lockdown, so it was doubly torturous and it was doubly tormenting in that sense. That what do I do? Like, why am I constantly comparing myself with the rest of the world, and why am I comparing myself with my friends, whom I think are my friends, and the answer, like, I just sort of Googled it one day, like, does competition actually serve a purpose? Is competition even healthy for individuals, for adults? And there was one article, I think, was it The Hidden Cost of Overemphasizing Competition? Maybe I'm conflating that article with some other article that I'd read of his, but that was the article that, opened my eyes overnight. And obviously my nervous system still has that imprint of how I've been conditioned in circles that were all about grades and marks and competition and being intellectually, branding themselves intellectually superior, and yeah, so it's quite bad. So that's one thing that I'm actively trying to decondition my nervous system from, like just, and this is a part of that process, because I'm trying to put myself out there in a raw, vulnerable state where, I could be repeating things, I might stutter at times, I don't know. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. What does being yourself without performing mean to you today? So, what does being yourself without performing? I think it's about being emotionally aware of your own emotions in the instant that you're in. And if you feel like you're sort of masking your true self, or masking the things you'd naturally want to say, or maybe you just want to leave a conversation, or you'd like to talk to a certain person, I think it's all about getting to know your own desires, your wants, your needs, your likes and dislikes, and then trusting yourself that even if I follow my emotions, I'll do the right thing eventually. I think that's what it's about, that, even if, and, you have to be respectful of, as long as no one is getting hurt, no one is getting, as long as you're not doing anything that would be objectively considered as hurting someone in the context of wherever you're at. I think that's what being yourself without performing would mean, where you're not trying to be quiet to keep the peace, or you're trying to dominate the conversation so you are seen as like the leader of the group. So it's those kind of things. Yeah, I don't really have a good answer to this particular question, but yeah. What quality do you cherish in people you feel safe with? Oh my God, this is such a good question. What quality do I cherish in people that I feel safe with? I think it's emotional attunement, right? Like if I'm talking to someone and they are sort of not paying heed to what I'm saying, and they just move on to a different topic, like that feels quite, it doesn't feel very nice. It's not a very good feeling. But as opposed to someone who's actually listening to you and is actually listening to understand rather than listening to argue, right? So I think that's one of the biggest qualities that I would, prioritize in the people that I feel safe with, or rather that I do prioritize, that I feel safe with. The quality I prioritize when I feel safe with people, or with the people that I feel safe with. Yeah, right. What are you discovering about your own voice lately? Oh yeah, this is a good one. If it's meant as a literal question, like about my voice, I think so. So this is the thing that I've been debating with myself for a really long time. I've got a British sort of accent, right? Like, I'd probably throw in a few shades of Australian and Irish here and there as well. But I didn't have this accent whilst I was growing up. Like, I had an Indian English accent because I grew up in India, right? And every time I talked in that accent, it only reminded me of all the times that I was shut down by people around me. Like, it doesn't remind me. It doesn't remind me of good memories. So it's not about being shut down, but my survival self, like the one who was carrying the trauma imprint and was just constantly in survival mode, used that accent to build a personality out of that accent. So what I believe is different accents give you access to different personalities. Like if you were to talk in a German accent, you'd probably hear like, a different sort of personality. And if I were to talk in an Irish accent, you'd probably sort of get to know a very particularly different sort of personality. And if you were to talk in an Australian accent, you'd, definitely get a different personality, mate. Yeah. And so it's all about what my Indian English accent, the kind of personality draws out from me. And I don't really like that because it was stuck in survival mode. And, I like to think of accents like clothes. Like, I think we've all had that experience in which we're wearing certain kinds of certain clothes from our past, which make us feel either good or make us feel bad. And I think it's the same way with me and accents. Like, I don't really like the way I feel when I use the Indian English accent. So and also the different accents, I think, also give you access to different registers. So it's not exactly the accent itself, but it's the intonation that's associated with a particular accent, which gives the accent itself a personality of its own for an individual, I suppose. What's a tiny, almost silly thing that brings you joy? Wow, that's a really good question. I don't really have an answer for that right now. What's one way you're becoming more you this year? Doing this, like putting myself, experimenting with what makes me feel good and what doesn't make me feel good. I'm sort of trying to distance myself from constant self-criticism and whatnot. And yeah. I really don't know what to say right now. But what I want to do essentially is to have, to let go of the things that I think are not good and to focus more on the things I'm naturally doing, and without sort of shaming myself, oh, why did I repeat that thing like 10 times? Like, who cares? I mean, even if I do repeat something 10 times, people are free not to watch it, right? I mean, they can just they can even dislike the video if they want, but at the end of the day, I think it's about sending out a signal into the world about who I am as a person. Because, and everyone keeps saying, oh no, you should talk to people in person, and why are you always on your phone? Because the world has now shifted to to being globally connected to the extent that we're now more present globally on the global sort of network than we are in our own little networks. I mean, people now use global material that's shared in global networks to connect with each other on a local level. So I think we're living in a very different kind of information age than we were before. It's more about, I don't know, they call it the attention economy, they call it various things, but so this is basically my part of that process of leaving that imprint on the global network so that my tribe can find me and I can find them and do things together and have fun and live and enjoy life. Yeah. And this is, wow, I mean, I have to say that this is so very different from what I do usually. I mean, what I used to do back then. Because you've got, I was focused completely on just doing, just using YouTube or social media as places where I would just regurgitate information. But I think now it's become more about, now I'd like to make it more about who I am as a person, and what I do is a natural part and parcel of that thing. Yeah, so let's see how I feel after this.